So this is episode 2 of The Exchange with Jack Callow on behalf of Weasel News. And today's guest, if you would like to introduce yourself to the people at home, can you tell us who you are and where your been career-wise?
Hello, I'm Artemis Blackthorne. I'm one of the state representative elects for the Ninth Congress. Since, kind of moving here and living here, I've worked at Weasel News as a journalist a while ago. I got bar certified, and for a little brief stint, I worked at the psych department with the San Andreas Medical Services, and now I am dedicating pretty much all of my time towards focusing on the legislature.
Wonderful. So you've been in the state for quite a bit now. Is there a specific department that you're looking forward to working with the most?
I wouldn't say there's one I'm looking forward to the most, but I believe that I'll probably spend a good amount of time working on bills for law enforcement. I already spoke to Sheriff Kavanaugh briefly at the last town hall, I think on the 28th, about a bill that he thinks deserves some adjustments that I agreed with. So I have a feeling that I'm going to be working with them a lot on some things that maybe just need some adjustments that they believe would benefit not only, their ability to do their jobs properly, but also benefit the people around the state. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. And pretty much any department that, has any changes that they think should be made, I'm always willing to talk to them as well and figure out what we can do to make it work for everybody.
That's a wonderful answer. I like to see that you're willing to work with anyone and everyone in this government. A lot of people usually hold grudges and pettiness, you know?
Oh yeah, I don't really care much for like the whole political drama of, having grudges against a person or a department or a group. It's just I'm here to actually, do the job and write bills and keep everything running properly. And whether or not I've heard about or personally had myself issues with, a person or group or department, if they have good ideas or they have changes that they think should be made, I'm always willing to hear them out and, you know, figure out a way to move forward or come up with another idea that might suit what they're looking for better.
On that topic, let's talk policy. What would you say is your driving force going into this term as a state representative? Like, what legislation are you looking to bring to the public? What are you looking to rewrite? Do you feel anything needs to be changed, actually?
Well, one thing that I really want to do just on my own is create legislation to further establish what each role in the government does. Because almost every election, we see a lot of people running for office who don't seem to really understand what the limits of the office are that they're running for, or misunderstand what exactly they can do. So I want to, looking back at our library of laws, almost every government department has a core bill that establishes who they are, what they can do, what they can't do, what their jurisdiction is. But despite how important our legislature and executive branches are, they don't really have a core bill. They just have the Constitution that defines what they are, but it doesn't really go into much detail. So I want to work with the other state reps and also with whoever gets elected to the executive branch to come up with better expanded definitions for what we can all do in our roles and what the restrictions are, and further help, not only us going into the Ninth Congress, but every future term and that happens after ours, help everyone that, is running for office or gets elected to office know what exactly they can do for the state. But beyond that, I want to work with, just everyday people around the state, whether it's, just average citizens, business owners, government employees, anybody that lives in the state. I want to be able to listen to them about what they think the legislature should be doing and what changes should be made. And like I said before, kind of figure out if I can if they have a great idea that I think should be implemented, I can just work on a bill right away, or discuss with them what I believe would work better, or explain to them, you know, if it's an idea that I can't necessarily enact or the legislature doesn't have the power to do, explain that to them and find out something else that we can do to solve that problem.
That being said, with the with the governor's race in full force, is there a specific candidate that you're watching closely in terms of policies? Like, what's your overall opinion on the current candidates, both governor and lieutenant governor candidates?
In terms of policy, I think just about everybody in the state has seen a lot from Bets Lawson and Maxine Finch, and I know Maxine Finch pretty well. We used to work together at Weasel back in the day, and they do a lot of campaigning. They are very public about what they want to do and their policies, but I haven't really seen much from Damian Key and Gracie McCoy. It's not to say that they don't have good policies or they don't have a good vision for what they want with a second term. It's just the matter that we haven't really seen it or heard it from them. So I'd like to hear more from them, because even though I might completely agree with everything they want to do and everything they say, I just haven't heard it from them to actually know whether or not I do. But beyond that, I don't really care for political drama, like people going after one candidate or another or trying to smear them. All I really care about is just whether they're doing their job and doing it correctly and in a way that is benefiting the state. So I don't really lean towards one candidate or another just yet. I'm still waiting to hear more about Damian Key and Gracie McCoy's platform before I really make a solid decision.
Very good answer. Because it is true. Right now, we're only hearing one side of the argument. We're not really hearing both. That being said, though, you being a civilian, being the one affected by it the most, how do you feel both branches performed this last term? And I mean, like, the legislative and the executive. If you'd like, we'll start with the legislative.
So for the legislative branch for the 8th Congress, I think they did a really good job as far as like Betts's legislative overhaul and a lot of the bills submitted by other members of Congress. Obviously, Justin Lee kind of vanished pretty quickly after the term started and was impeached. And then I believe Yuri Devlin was appointed by Governor Key. We haven't really seen much from him either. So I wish that we would have had a representative appointed who would have been more of an active member of the legislature. You know, there's still some time before, the 9th Congress starts, so he might introduce something before then, but we haven't seen anything from him yet. And then all the other members of Congress this term have done a pretty good job of just kind of introducing a couple bills. I think Maxine Finch introduced the most amount of bills behind Bets Lawson, but I could be mistaken. But they did a pretty decent job. Nothing really groundbreaking beyond just Bets cleaning up the Library of Laws, which is going to be very helpful and beneficial for the 9th Congress and pretty much every Congress going forward from there. I'd say they did a pretty good job. I don't have anything to be upset about. I also wouldn't say there's all too much to be super excited about beyond the overhaul. And then the executive branch, they admittedly haven't really done much. I don't think beyond just nominations for department heads and whatnot, I don't think Governor Key's issued a executive order at all this term. We don't see them around very much. They're not very active members of the community. I think they released 2 of their communication is key videos. I think they went to some events in the South Side not too long ago and did a Q&A, but beyond that, we haven't really seen much of them this term. So I'm hoping if they are elected to another term that we see a change with that and see them around more often.
That brings us to another point. So, because our governor hasn't exactly been around much, whether it be personal reasons or not, and how the legislature has been running, do you feel that there isn't enough oversight over the legislative and executive branches currently, or do you think there's too much?
I think when it comes to oversight over the executive and legislative branches, I believe it's not necessarily an issue of whether they have enough oversight or not. I believe it's an issue of the fact that they're supposed to be their own oversight, and the executive branch is meant to be kind of the oversight over the government as a whole, and we don't really feel that right now. It may be different for certain parts of the government. Maybe they hear from Governor Key more often than we do, but essentially the way the system is set up, the executive branch is meant to be oversight, and legislative branch is supposed to be able to work with the governor in terms of oversight and also be able to oversee themselves in a way. I mean, they've got the speaker and the secretary and the treasurer and 2 additional state representatives, but they're able to oversee themselves. We haven't really seen a whole lot of issues with them struggling to oversee themselves this term. They did impeach Justin Lee for not, participating in the role he was elected to. And they've done a pretty good job of, keeping themselves in line this term. But the executive is still meant to be kind of a, in a way, a mediator for a lot of different things within our government, but we don't really see that. So I don't think they need a different form of oversight. I think they just need to get things back in line with the way the system is supposed to be set up.
Beautiful answer. Very concise, very to the point, and I couldn't agree more. That being said, what are your thoughts on the current state of the government departments in regards to how to communicate with civilians on government matters? Do you feel there's a level of transparency there that's far too little, a bit too much? And would you happen to have any ideas on how it could be improved going forward?
I think in terms of, government departments communicating with the public and civilians, I know for a lot of them it can seem like no matter what they do, nothing really makes anybody happy. And I know that can be demotivating, like for law enforcement, or just, the hospital or any government department really like DOCL. They usually only get negativity coming towards them. And that can be a very big struggle for, having the motivation to go out there and, reach out to the public and communicate with them. And I know there's plenty of reasons for people to, have criticisms for government departments, and some of them, I would agree with those complaints. But I think for government departments to communicate better, it should, if they don't really want to have that face-to-face communication, then they should, put out some kind of newsletter or whatnot to, communicate more and have more of a open dialogue with the public. Or just at the town halls, I've noticed that a lot of them will, they'll answer questions when they're asked, but for the most part, it's no announcements, nothing to talk about, or they aren't present at the town halls. So I think just a more visible presence could definitely be very helpful. And I think a lot of departments would find that a lot of people would really appreciate seeing them around more often, or having more of a open, application process. I know some departments seem like they aren't very present and they don't have a whole lot of people out and about, clocked in, working. and maybe, opening up to hiring, because I know a lot of them have their hiring processes closed right now. So hopefully they'll open up soon and get more people in who can, bring some fresh blood to them to get them out there and communicate more with people who are really excited to interact with them.
Like you brought up a point that a lot of people overlook, and that's that the police department, EMS, doctors, they are extremely overworked. That is very true. And even though I am a critic of a lot of things they do, I cannot overestimate just how busy they tend to be. That being said, let's say there's one thing you can improve in this state. Like, no department being off limits to propose change. Is there something you would try to make better, and why?
I'd say the one thing that I would improve if it were possible across the board is just a more clear and concise public display of what guidelines are for a lot of these departments. I'm not saying like LEOs should just completely open up their SOPs for everybody to be able to read through. But stuff like DOCL or DHS or SAMS, any department out there, any guidelines that would have to do with, civilians and the public, make those more public. I know DOCL, a lot of people have complained about how, starting a business can be difficult because not all of DOCL's guidelines are visible to the public, and someone can read through all of the stuff that's publicly available, but still find themselves, facing denials from DOCL in regards to certain parts of their business proposal, just because of, guidelines that DOCL has that aren't visible to the public. So it can be frustrating and demotivating. I think if, every department that has guidelines that could, affect the civilian population, if those were all public, it could help a lot of people and help a lot of people have more of a positive attitude towards those departments and how they operate.
Before we end this interview, is there any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Closing remarks, just I want to let everybody know that I want to make a lot of my legislative focus geared towards what people want me to focus on. And what I mean by that is if people bring me, an issue that they think should be corrected through legislation, or anything that they think should be changed with our current legislation, or anything at all, if people bring that to me, I want to focus on that above everything else I'm working on. Because if it's something that people are actively bringing to me, then that way I know it's more important to the people of the state over just things that I come up with on my own. Because I want to primarily help the people of the state rather than just serve all these different policy ideas I come up with on my own that other people in the state might not really notice or care about. So if anything comes up to you that you want me to focus on, just make sure to send me an email or a text message, and I will get back to you, figure out how we can make it work, or find out another solution that will help exactly what you're trying to focus on.
Perfect. And now we move on to the final question, which is 3 parts. So we'll start with the first part. Is someone out there that you want to shout out? Fans, family, businesses?
Just the people of the state. I mean, I think we're all facing our own issues, and I think, especially around the holidays, a lot of people might be struggling. Hope they're all doing well and having a great holiday season as much as they can, or focusing on themselves and, enjoying the season as much as they can.
Is there anyone you want to send a message to? It could be the department, the people, etc.
Again, just the state as a whole. Just hope they're all having a great holiday season.
Wonderful. And now the last part of the question, which is honestly one of my favorite parts. Is there anyone you want to call out? Whether it doesn't matter who it is. Anyone you want to call out that you feel should, one, either speak their mind, or two, just want to call them out on something?
I wouldn't say necessarily just call people out to, put them on blast in the interview, but I think a lot of politicians should do more interviews like this and, actually answer a lot of these questions and put their thoughts out to the public um, in a way that's not necessarily just a simple press release or a tweet. I think Damien and Gracie should definitely engage more in interview journalism or just more open-ended questions and responses. And I'd also like to see other members of the legislature coming in, talk to the press a lot, because for a long time, the press doesn't really get a whole lot of direct access to a lot of people in politics, at least not in an interview format. So I'd love to be able to see more of our state representatives talking to the press and giving them answers and letting them ask the questions that the people are wanting to know about.
Perfect. That being said, Bex Lawson and Maxine Finch actually did one of these interviews. It's waiting to be uploaded. Well, I already uploaded it. Weasel News just has to upload it now. And I did reach out for Joanna Poole for comment. I have not heard back from her yet. And tomorrow we're actually interviewing Damian Key and Gracie McCoy.
Awesome, that's great to hear. I'm glad that they're communicating with the press more than they have in the past term. And I'm looking forward to hearing what their answers are to a lot of your questions, and hopefully more of the state reps in the 9th Congress can reach out and talk to you more, and hopefully we'll see that soon.
Hopefully. With that being said, this has been a wonderful interview, and this is Jack Callow of Weasel News, wishing you